Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Butch, what we got on tap this week, man?
Man, we got a lot of exciting stuff happening. I wish the wind would stop blowing long enough for people to get out there and try to find some fish, though, a little bit more offshore.
Yeah, it's been tough, but that's the springtime on the northern Gulf Coast. You just got to kind of be ready and sitting on go. And if and when you can get out, though, man, this is some of the best time of the year to be fishing. We've got some reports coming, moving onshore to inshore, offshore, blue water on into bottom fishing, surf fishing to rig fishing. I mean, we got a little bit of everything today, so I'm excited. Let's get right into it, man. Our first contributor is the Bama Beach Bum, Matthew Isbell, down on the Gulf Coast beaches. Matthew, welcome to the show, man. Tell us what we got going on this week in the surf.
Dude, it is on fire. It is upon us. Spring is here, and we are loving life as beach land dwellers. It's going off, man. Pompano are in here, and they're in here thick. We're loving it.
That's great. Define thick for me.
Thick. You should very easily be able to get, whether you're fishing Florida, the Panhandle, Alabama, you should easily be able to get your limit, as long as you don't have like 20 people with you. You may have to put in some time, different days, obviously it's going to take you longer, but, if you typically beach fishing is a relaxation thing. And most of the time people are out there for long extended periods of time, and anywhere you're fishing right now, no trouble to pick up that limit.
Any particular time of day better than the other?
No, I mean, they come in spurts. I'm fishing mornings and afternoons, midday. I mean, I'm fishing pretty much all day, and we catch them at any point in the day, but they just come in spurts. There's really no rhyme or reason or when they're biting better than, or, every day is different. It's just, you'll pick up a pompano some days every 5 minutes, some days every 30 minutes. They're just spaced out differently. So it just depends on what schools you're getting coming through at what particular time. But no, sir. No, you can catch them all day, every day. It's pretty awesome. This is what we dream for right here. This is what you want. For
sure. The water got a little dirtied up after all that rain, huh? That didn't affect you guys too much?
I thought that it would. I thought it was going to really hurt us. And it did slow it down a bit, but we were I was shocked. The groups that I had the last couple of days, today it's kind of cleaned up a little bit, but we were still catching pompano, but not as consistently as we were the week prior, but still, we were still catching them. And what was cool about it, we were able to pick up other species, because typically this time of year, all you're really catching are pompano. In the springtime, that's generally the case. I mean, which is great. We don't complain about that. But we did get a nice variety of species mixed in there with the pompano. We were catching some black drum, redfish. So we were seeing some different things out there as well, and more whiting, which whiting have been, more scarce since the pompano have shown up more consistently. So that was nice. I didn't mind it. I was thinking we were going to be hammered with hardheads. That was oh crap, we're going to be catching a bunch of catfish. And really we didn't, we caught a few. I mean, that's pretty typical when the water gets dirty that you're going to catch some, but it was not nearly as bad as I thought.
Well, Matthew, you're talking about variety a little bit. I understand you guys landed a keeper cobia from the beach. Now tell me, what's the beach limit for cobia?
Right.
This year has been by far the best surf fishing cobia bite I've seen in my life. I mean,
one for one.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right, man. That was so crazy. So crazy. I was fishing. I know Dusty Hayes. I know he contributes here as well. So some of your listeners are going to recognize his name. And we were fishing beside each other that day. And thank goodness for Dusty Hayes, because I totally lost my head. I mean, I was flipping out as soon as we realized it was a coat. I mean, I was basically in the fetal position on the beach, rocking back and forth and just screaming to Dusty, you got to land this fish, because I was useless.
Just funny. Jumping up and down, pointing at it.
So he ate some fish bites?
Yes. What happened is, my guess here is I just recasted. I was changing baits. I put on a piece of fish bite. I think the sand flea flavor is what we're using, which that's mainly what I use right now. And I put on a little piece of dead shrimp and within seconds of recasting, it was fish on. And I just assumed, dumb luck, that cobia was cruising by. When that bait hit the water, I assume it caught its attention, came over, checked it out, and boom, ate. So
I'll take that kind of luck any day.
Yeah, oh man, any day, all day. I wish I could get that lucky every day.
For sure. Was it at least on a decent sized rod, or did you guys have to do some serious battle?
No, I've never caught a cobia, period. So that was new to me, which, that's a goal of mine. I want to go catch a cobia this year, which, I guess I'll have to do it the traditional way, which is from a boat. But
yeah.
It really didn't fight. In cobia world, I know it was just a very small cobia. I mean, it was barely legal. I mean, 33 inches to the fork is legal. It was 35. So, I mean, it was barely legal there, but it was 17 pounds, and we had it on one of my Pompano rigs, and one of my Pompano rods, which is like a 10-foot surf rod. And, it only took maybe 5 to 7 minutes, if I had to guess. It didn't take very long. It took a couple of quick runs right at the beginning, and then after that, it kind of swam towards us. And then, of course, once we got it close to the beach, it didn't like that. So, I mean, it fought a little bit more there. But aside from that, no, I mean, it wasn't too difficult to wrangle in.
Tell me about this beach landing. What did Dusty do that was so great? Did he tackle this thing, or?
He was prepared to, but I seriously kind of blocked out, because like once we realized it was a cobia, I mean, I'm telling you guys, like I was flipping out, man. I mean, I was like running to almost every person on the beach, like screaming, like we have a cobia on. Like, I mean, I was just in shock. I know that cobia like freak out, and usually when you throw them on the boat after you gaff them or whatever, you kind of have to get out of the way. So. I didn't know like the best way to deal with this fish, grabbing it out of the surf and bringing it onto the beach. Dusty, I don't even know honestly what he did, but I did run behind him just because like I was playing goalie, like I was standing with my back to the Gulf and facing the beach while Dusty was dealing with the fish, because in case it did get away from him, so I was going to jump on it. Like that was just my thought. Like I didn't care if I get stabbed by its barbs on his back. Like we were going to get that fish. Like,
right.
There was
no worth it.
Yeah. There was no not losing that fish. So
that's a great story.
It was a lot of fun. And I'll say this just to wrap up that section of the story. That it was funny because the people that were fishing, they were from Illinois, and they had no clue. Like they really had no clue how awesome this was, and like how rare it is to catch a beach cobia. And so they didn't understand the fact that me and Dusty were both flipping out. And Scott Kennedy, which I know he contributed, he was fishing the same beach, but he was probably like 150 yards. I literally waved him down, like from down the beach, told him, come check this out. So he came down there. He was flipping out. And, they know now how big of a deal it is, but they didn't even realize what was going on and how cool that was.
That's always the way it happens, man. The first time that I brought my buddy down to do an overnight trip from Virginia, he'd only done some inshore stuff, and he caught a blue marlin, his first trip ever on a charter boat.
Oh my gosh!
Like, well, you're ruined. Go back to Virginia.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool.
Well, Matthew, it sounds like y'all had a lot of fun with that cobia. There's a video that we just put out online. You can check it out on our Facebook page about how to clean a cobia like a pro. Captain Richard Rutland detailed that process for us in a little video we put together, and we cleaned that fish on a killer dock, which brings me to something a little more serious. We've talked about it before, but I feel like if I share this information, it helps other guys. And I just want everybody to know I've really suffered from dock dysfunction for a number of years, and I wasn't really sure that I could ever get relief. I'd gotten used to the, dirty wood on my fish cleaning table, and during the summertime, the heat of the sun just baking down on my skin. I looked around, and really, I'm seeing this out of pretty much everybody else as well. But, right now, guys, Killer Dock, they bring the dock enhancement that not only will put an end to your suffering, but it will make being on your dock enjoyable again. Killer Dock combines the durability, function, and design to uniquely upgrade your entire dock experience. Visit killerdock.com to check it out for yourself. Matthew, on a serious note, the tip sponsor always brings us to the surf fishing tip. And this time of year, we got a lot of pompano in the area. What are you thinking for a tip this week?
What I wanted to just mention, because I see a lot of people getting very impatient with their pompano fishing, which pompano fishing is great. And like I said earlier, there's really no reason you can't get your limit wherever you're fishing. And most people get caught up on what kind of bait to use, or maybe they pick up and move locations. But the biggest thing that you want to do this time of year is just be patient and be confident in your bait. As long as you've got good bait, whether that's fresh shrimp, fresh ghost shrimp, fresh sand fleas, fish bites, whatever, any of that stuff's going to work as long as it's just not old and crusty. And the most important thing is just making sure you're patient and in the right location. And by location, I mean just using what I talked about before, staggering your baits, making sure you know where those fish are running, because they're running every beach right now. I mean, they're all over and they're coming through. So as long as you locate what depth they're running, I promise you'll get them. And as long as you've got good baits, I promise you'll get them. They're not picky right now. So just don't get too caught up in that game and hearing what people are telling you. They're only hitting this or only hitting that. They'll eat whatever. You just got to be patient with it.
It's interesting to hear you say that, Matthew, because a few years ago when I really kind of doubled down on surf fishing as opposed to, grew up doing a lot of inshore fishing and blue water and offshore fishing, I tried everything. I tried the fresh peeled dead shrimp and I tried mole crabs, sand fleas, and you're saying that you need to be confident in your baits. I think that's, to me, aside from the fact that fish eat them, that's one of the biggest reasons that I like those fish bites is that
they're consistent.
Well, I know that they're still on the hook is the biggest thing. Because if I'm sitting there, if I've got fresh dead shrimp on or I've got sand fleas on, I'm constantly in the back of my mind going,
there's no bait.
I wonder if I got bait.
Yeah.
Did I cast it off? Did something little come in and nibble it off as it washed off? And almost always, unless I've had it out there for literally, an hour, that fish bite is still there. And I know I'm in the strike zone and I know I got good bait. So that's a cool tip this week. And it is important this time of year. You're talking about, though, having good bait and being patient. Are those fish running in every zone in the surf right now, Matthew, or are you staggering your baits? I know you said don't worry about this too much, but like if somebody's starting out, would you have them stagger those baits, or can they just rely on just cast them out there and eventually a pack of fish is going to show up where they've got them?
A pack?
No, it's still very important to be in the right zone in the right depth, because if you're not casting in the right area, like if you're not getting far enough out, or if you're going too far, you will miss those fish. There's definitely still a pattern there where you will pick up pompano in areas where you will not pick up pompano. So the best way to find that is by staggering the rods and realizing which one is getting the hits and catching the fish. They're still like, right now, I'll walk up and down the beach after I've been fishing, and I'll pass multiple groups, because these beaches are a little more crowded this year. But there's a lot. I have a lot of and there's still people that aren't catching pompano and people that are on the same beach. So yes, you still want to pay attention very closely to where you're putting those baits and try to be strategic in locating those pompano. But any of this, I promise, they'll pick them up. They'll eat it. We've caught them on everything. Like they'll eat it. They're not being picky. You just got to make sure you're locating the fish more so than trying to move locations or change your bait. That's my point. Don't get caught up in that. Get more caught up in trying to find the fish. Like that's what's more important.
All right, Matthew. Well, thanks for the report this week, buddy. Have good luck out there. And folks, if y'all want to check out Matthew's YouTube channel, it is Bama Beach Bum on YouTube. He's got a bunch of informational how-to videos and just really how to become a better surf fisherman. Y'all check him out online. Thanks, Matthew. Butch, I noticed you took a little bit of exception with my use of the word pack when I was talking about pompano. What's your problem?
I mean, it could have been a flock of pompano. Is that what they're called? Is that specific to their species, that they're not called a school? They're
probably called a school. We could have called it a gaggle, maybe. I just feel like pompano are pack animals, really. I mean, I just feel like they're the wolves of the surf. That's why I use that word.
Okay. I'm totally fine with that, man.
That's not okay with you. I mean, if you need me to change up my vernacular.
What about a pride? Pride of pompano sounds cooler.
Nah, we're not going to do that. Okay. All right, let's go talk to Richard Rutland and get the nearshore report.
All right, what you say, Captain Richard? What's been going on this week, bud?
Oh man, I'm singing the blues a little bit this week. I was really, I know, man. I was really looking forward to fishing this week, doing some wade fishing and fishing lots of artificial bays for some trout. We're about to be upon the full moon in April, which is this Friday evening. Man, I guess the fish don't know that they're supposed to be fired up over that. So
that's unfortunate.
I know, man. I've been struggling just to taste with the speckled trout. I've been mostly, wade fishing and trying to target some bigger fish with artificials, and it really hadn't been happening. The good news is that there's plenty of other stuff going on. There's been a lot of school-sized fish that are still like in the northern part of the Mississippi Sound, in Portersville Bay, Grand Bay, right there around Little River, just west of Bayou La Battery. Those areas are in shallow water around Oyster Shell, are holding lots of school-sized fish. It's been money with a popping cork and a voodoo. Actually been doing a little bit better on voodoo shrimp than we have live shrimp this week, which is kind of hard to say a lot of times, but that's been the case. And then the sheephead bite's still going on real good. And then the bull reds, like we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, are still doing real well out on Dixie bars. So there's still plenty of stuff to go do. But like I said, I'm singing the blues a little bit about the speckled trout fish, and I hope it improves, or I hope it's doing good for somebody else other than me.
For sure. That's just part of it, man.
Yeah, well, you can't, that's why they call it fishing. You can't go stroke them every day. So,
what do you do this time of year, or any time of year rather, when you're on kind of a spotty bite like that, or you're not feeling real confident in any one particular pattern or any one particular spot? How do you change, other than maybe going after those fish that you talk about, the sheep's head, the bull reds, some of the other species that are biting really well right now? What would you recommend somebody do if they're focused on speckled trout? I mean, you have to fish in tournaments. Y'all have won a lot of tournaments where you got to go catch speckled trout. How do you change your tactics when the fishing's tough?
Man, you really just got to think outside the box for me. So like I said, I kind of beat my head against the concrete the past 2 days at Dolphin Island, trying to kind of force something to happen with speckled trout. And what I should be doing is go into a different system, thinking about things differently. Okay, the tide's been low for 2 days. We're on a full moon, so maybe some of these bigger size fish right now are kind of either doing something nocturnal at night, or they're feeling different, feeling funny, I guess, about the spawning period that's coming up, and so they're kind of shut down. So you just need to go find a different school of fish. So my advice would be like, go, if you're not doing anything around Dolphin Island, run up the bay towards Fowl River or Gilliard Island, or run to the west and go fish right around side Bayou La Battery down towards the state line by Grand Bay, or go chase something different. Like I always say, I'm catching what's biting. You know what I mean? If largemouth bass were biting and that was the thing to go do, that's what I would go do. And like I said earlier, like the thing to go do right now still is sheephead and redfish for me. So that's what I'm gonna be doing next. Is something like that until these fish kind of come out of this funk. And the reason I can kind of tell they're in a funk is because you pull up to a spot or two and you'll catch like 1 or 2 fish and like keeper size fish, and that'll be the only thing you get. And then you get to another spot and you catch 5 million 12-inch fish. And what that tells me is that the spawning size fish are doing their spawning thing and acting differently, and the fish that have not reached sexual maturity yet, which are your shorter fish, are still real active. So that's just something you kind of got to deal with.
That makes sense a lot. Yeah, they're just doing different things right now, and you just got to find out what they're doing, I reckon.
That's it. It's not an easy process. It's more of a process of elimination than hitting the lottery. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So
sure.
You just got to think outside the box when these types of things start to happen. Like when Mobile Bay is real hot and then it goes cold, and you go to like rig after rig or reef or rocks or whatever you do, and you're not getting bites. I know I need to get out of that system and go somewhere else and do something different. You know what I mean? You just you got to think in terms like that.
For sure. All right, man. We're going to give you the Hey Cap question this week. Adam Smith is going to get the Fairhope Rattle Popping Cork this week. Adam Smith asks, this is a Captain Richard Rutland specific question. With cobia season approaching, what are some tactics for finding cobia around Mobile Bay, and what are some early season baits that are readily available? What you think?
So I guess I'll talk about bait first. I have not caught a ling yet. I haven't seen one. Haven't felt real good about it just yet. I feel like we're just a little ways away probably from seeing some show up in Alabama. I don't know that I've heard of one being caught in Alabama yet, but I could be wrong. As far as bait goes, I usually like to catch live pogies and use those. Those are a little bit scarce right now. I've been carrying some artificials with me, just being ready for if I see one or mark one on my machine. And then there's been a ton of croakers around, been some white trout around, some of the deep water structures, whatnot. So that would be something. I know I've had real good luck with just like a bucktail jig or a jig with a curly tail grub on it. You know, those 3 to 4 ounce jigs. Mm-hmm. And then also like the little hoagie eels. I've used those before and had great luck. So that's what I would use as far as bait. Is what's kind of available. The other thing too you can do is maybe try to cast net some live mullet. Mullet are a great bait. They'll stay alive all day in your live well, and always stay fairly frisky. As far as like where I'm looking for them in springtime, I usually look for them to be around any kind of vertical structure south of Dauphin Island and Mobile Bay. Generally don't find them up in the bay in the spring quite like you do other times of the year. So I get around some of these rigs, range markers, buoys. I've caught them out there around the ships this time of year. You know, do a combination of free lining and a lightly weighted bait around some of these ships and rigs and whatnot. You can also chum for them too. Chum works real great. It'll really usually, if there's a fish around like a rig or something, get on the up current side and do a little chum churning. And that'll usually bring them up to you.
Richard,
Sweet.
you know something else that you didn't mention there, and I tend to forget about this as a bait choice, but it's something that's pretty readily available just about all year round, is a hardhead catfish. If you'll go
thinking
out
the same thing
and go to a marina, catch a few hardhead catfish. You don't want to get the big giant ones, but if you can catch some of the smaller ones and just go ahead and snip their fins off, those things will stay alive. It's pretty hard to kill a hardhead catfish, and a cobia really like them, especially when you pitch those things out. They like to swim towards the bottom, so they get a good action to them as well. You ever find those cobia? You catch a lot of cobia every year. You ever find? I've always wondered. You ever see them in their stomachs, Richard?
Man, all the time. It's wild. I've never. It's kind of hard to make myself go catch a trash fish to catch a ling. Like go catch a catfish to catch a ling. But I do, man. I probably clean about 15 or 20 fish a year that have hardhead catfish. You can't always tell it's a hardhead, but you always find their dorsal and their pec fins, like those little spines that are on that'll get you on a cat. You'll find those in there. And man, I found stingrays inside of their stomachs. I mean, just an array of stuff, like little crazy looking rock shrimp. And I mean, they're scavengers. They'll kind of eat anything, in my opinion.
For sure. But, I've seen stingrays in their stomachs too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Apparently, according to Isbell, you probably find fish bites in their stomach. And
yeah, that's right.
Is that what he got his on last week?
Yeah, he caught one off the beach on a fish bite. Believe it or not,
man, that's neat. That's neat. Speaking of fish bites, I caught some. I did catch a few flounder the other day while I was wade fishing, using some of those fish bites. The fish bites. I'm definitely coming around on those, man. That's the real deal. Talking about the soft plastic grubs that they make, the Fight Club.
The Fight Club series. You're talking about flounder, you get a lot of people's attention. Is there any particular color pattern you were liking, the chartreuse or anything like that with those flounder?
I really like that chartreuse that's got a little bit of a fleck, like a black fleck in it or whatever. I'm not exactly sure what the color is, but I've been using the kind of the paddle tail, like the 3 or 4 inch paddle tail, And then also the shrimp. I like the shrimp. It's got a bunch of legs that hang out off of it and stuff. It looks good. I've caught them both on there, and redfish too. Redfish have been reacting to it as well. So definitely something new for everybody to check out. I'm starting to really come around on that.
Very cool Hey Cap question this week. Thanks for sending that in to Alabama at bestfishingreport.com, and thanks for Fairhope Rattle for giving a free popping cork every week for those guys submitting questions. Y'all send us your questions. We need some more coming up. Thanks, Richard. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, man. Y'all keep them tight.
All right, man. It's always a good report from old Captain Cold-Blooded there on the inshore report. Let's head on down and get a near shore report from the Alabama state record holder for Sheep's Head, Captain Patrick Armisen. What's going on, buddy?
What's up, guys? I didn't get after any sheephead today, but since the last podcast, I've gotten out twice now, and both trips were ended in success. But the bite is definitely starting to change, or has changed, and starting to become a little bit more challenging to get it done. But
where do you attribute that to, you think?
My guess is the peak spawn is over, and that was probably around this past new moon. But it looks like based on what we caught the last 2 weeks, or the last 2 trips, were almost all males. There's just not very many females still left around, so I think there's probably going to be one more spawn right here around this full moon that we have coming up, and then I think it's going to be a mass exodus. I think most of those fish are going to pull off of that nearshore structure and the Gulf gas rigs and stuff like that. Now, one of the things that I have seen in the past is they will tend to gang up around the around the rocks at the east end jetties and Katrina Cut rocks on the sound side for maybe another week or so. But I think a lot of that stuff's going to all fizzle out pretty quick. So, I mean, if you had the opportunity to get out there, I don't know that it's going to be worth to be able to try to get out after it over the next couple of days, because the wind's supposed to be real high. But if you do, if the winds are favorable this weekend and you want to get out there and just stick your neck out one more time to try to find some, the main thing I can say, and this is based on the last 2 trips, is not giving any one spot too long. If you pull up to an area and you're lucky enough to see some fish on the surface, then definitely fish in those areas. If not, what I've been using my Ray Marine a lot, using the side scan and down scan sonar. I can see the fish. The sheephead that I've been seeing and catching have been they've been about 10 feet deep to no more than 20 feet deep. If you're marking a lot of fish, say in that 20 to 40 feet of water, obviously if you're in that depth of water, that anything that seems to be deeper than 20 feet is almost all red snapper by what we've been finding. So the guys so basically the tactic that I've been using is, and y'all got to do a little bit of this with me early on, was just using that single split shot or maybe 2 split shots, just something light enough to let it have a slow sink through the water column, but not giving it any more line than about 20 feet, because you're just getting through the sheephead and getting into the red snapper. Sure, they're fun, but I mean, they tear up all your tackle, and you stay hooked up with those guys and not, and you're not in front of the sheephead.
Patrick, take everybody through a lot of guys like Butch and I. I mean, we grew up with sheep's head really kind of being considered a trash fish.
Yeah.
It's only been in the last decade or so that they've really come on in popularity in Alabama. Now in Florida, they've loved them for a long time, but they love you a long time. But anyway, what I want you to do is kind of take everybody through how you would approach a gas rig, especially folks that are maybe haven't fished our system before. They're going out to a rig, and let's just assume we got 4 corners on that rig. What do you do to begin fishing? What's your thought process as you approach that rig?
First off, I'm really committed to my electronics and having good polarized sunglasses to be able to look down into the water. So if the water clarity is good, a lot of times you don't even have to rely on your electronics. You can come around. I like to pick the rigs that don't have other boats on them, and and take my time to wrap around the whole rig and look around all the legs of the pilings. And sometimes the schools will actually push off the rig, but for the most part, it's a lot easier to locate them when they are close to the structure. So that's if you have nice water quality, you have good polarized glasses, you have good sun and all that to be able to see all that. If not, then I'm using my electronics. I'm going to make a circle, and I'm not like, I'll go ahead and drop my trolling motor, but I'm going to just power around there with my big motor and look for the fish on the fish finder. Sometimes you'll see them on the side scan where they're up in the structure. But a lot of times the fish are going to be independently spaced. You're going to be able to, especially with a down scan or side scan, you'll be able to see the individual fish, and they seem to usually have a little more spacing between them than the red snapper do. A lot of times you'll see the red snapper on there, and there's like, it's almost a continuous blob of fish, whereas the sheephead, even at their peak, they're really spread out, where you can see the individual fish on your fish finder. So that's going to be the key, is making sure you're fishing where there's some sheephead. And then next, like I said, I'll have my trolling motor down. If it's an area, if I mark the fish where I can use my trolling motor, then I just hit it on anchor mode and set up and start fishing where I'm going to be up current of those fish that I found. If it ends up being down current, where sometimes you get some interference with the gas rig for your GPS trolling motor, I will tie up to the rig and then there fish close to the structure or close to where you're seeing the fish. And then, as I mentioned earlier about using lightweight, man, there's so many times where you're dropping a shrimp or a fiddler crab down through the water column, and you can kind of feel the bait sinking at a consistent rate, and then all of a sudden you get some slack in your line, and that's that fish picked it up on the way down. If you're using like 1 or 2 ounce sinkers and screaming past your fish, you're missing out on a whole opportunity to catch a fish. So
a little bit of sheep's head fishing I've done. I noticed that too. That split shot or whatever was key. Like you say, same exact thing you just said. Just let it kind of feather down, and you knew whenever one picked it up, it wasn't no doubt about it.
That's right.
Patrick, you've made a couple of trips out there sheep's head fishing, so I know you've come by Dixie Bar. We talked with Richard about the bull reds out on Dixie Bar. Have the conditions changed out there at all with some of these storms that have come through? Is the water quality still as good as it was? What's going on out there?
So about 2 weeks ago, we had just absolute gin clear water with easily 10 and 12 foot of visibility that was staying on top of the bar on an incoming tide. So you could literally cruise. You might have had some dirty water just on the east side of the bar or the west side of the bar. So you had a lot of really gin clear water that you could just ease up and down that bar and actually look for your fish. That is not the case anymore. The water quality has gone down. It's still greener and cleaner on the east side of the bar, but you're gonna have to have really ideal conditions and the fish be up really close to the surface for you to be able to find them. So the deal is now is you're gonna really have to start relying. You're gonna rely a little bit more on your electronics. You can see them on side scan, watching bird activity very closely, and then also like Richard mentioned. Was it last week or week before last? He talked about the slicks, and there were some obvious slicks out there the other day. But the guys that I had, they were like, they do the Dixie Bar thing all the time on their own, so they were really interested in staying focused on the sheephead. So we stayed on that, but there were some slicks out there, and I feel pretty confident we could have circled back and got up current upwind of those slicks and dropped some baits in on some fish. But so you're going to have to start spending more time doing that and doing more blind fishing, blind drifting, just setting some baits out, whether you're dropping some pogies or some soft plastic jigs or something like that, and just dragging and covering water. And a lot of times what I do this time or any time when I can't really see my fish, is I want to try to make a nice long drift to where I'm covering different depth ranges. So I don't want to just get on one bar and just drift one single bar for a mile and a half. I want to go on a bar, through a trough onto another bar. And sometimes you have to do that on your own. Sometimes you have to just kick the boat in gear and just kind of cover your own water, make your own drift happen. But that's how you're going to find them. And a lot of times when I find them, I'll throw a man overboard on my GPS and know where I pick those fish up. That way, if I keep drifting and don't pick anything else up, I'll circle back and make another pass to that same zone. Because a lot of times those fish are going to stay right in the same area for several, maybe 45 minutes, an hour, sometimes 2 hours, where you just can keep going over and over and over them. But if you don't throw that man overboard when you hit them that first time, then you don't have anything to really go back to.
Yep. For folks that don't understand, what he means is he's saying he marks it on his GPS. He doesn't actually throw one of his customers away. I mean, unless they want, that costs extra.
Yeah, that does cost extra, and you got to be a strong swimmer to hold that place, so we don't lose the fish. But as far as when I can sight cast the fish, I tend to use lighter tackle, stuff that we can cast and be real accurate with our cast, and we're basically catching these fish one at a time. When I get into start doing this drifting, and you may potentially have 3 or 4 rods out and all 4 get bit at one time, I like to up my game, up my tackle a little bit, go to some 50-pound braid and maybe some 50 or 60-pound leader, make my hooks have some larger hooks and just overall larger tackles, some like 5 or 6,000 series spinner reels works well. And this way that you can handle the fish easier and faster, get them in, and you're not tangling up a bunch of 20-pound braid and everybody gets cut off.
Not only that, you're not fighting the fish as long, which is better for the fish. Depending on releasing those fish, you really don't want to fight them any longer than you have to. I mean, I like fighting fish too, but you really need to use enough tackle so you can pretty well get them in and just go catch another one.
Yeah, you want to try to get that fish in within, say, 3 to 5 minutes, in my opinion, or less, and that definitely helps the survival of the fish. And I mean, this is a trophy fish, and I call it a trophy fish for like social media because it's they're really colorful and lit up out there in the Gulf. Usually you're catching them and they're glowing orange, and they'll have unique spot patterns and stuff. So take a look at that kind of stuff and highlight those features. Kiss them goodbye, let them swim, and catch them again the next trip.
All right, Patrick. Well, thanks for the Nearshore report this week. We always appreciate it. If folks want to get in touch with you, have you got any days left in April or a few left in May?
I have April 26th, 29th, and 30th available. And then I have May 2nd, 3rd, and 29th available. So I have 6 days over the rest of this month and next month available. So
now you book through Fishing Chaos. Is the best way for folks to book with you to still go to uglyfishing.com and go through that, or should they go through Fishing Chaos?
No, the easiest thing that they can do is just go to uglyfishing.com, click the book now button, and then that's going to take them to my booking page with Fishing Chaos. And then that's a live calendar, so you can see exactly what days are available. And if you're ready to go fishing with me, then you just click on it, select the fishing trip that you want to do, and lock it in. And it's that simple. So we can, and if you're completely computer illiterate and you want to book a trip, you can just call me on my cell phone at 251-747-1554, and I can book it on my end. And then, it'll send you an email confirmation and all that stuff. So anyway, it's working out well. My customers that are used to just calling me and saying, "Hey, Cap, let's go fishing," and there's a little bit of learning curve for them, but now that they've done it once or twice already, they're really excited about where it's at and where it's going. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Joe.
Very cool. All right, buddy. Well, stay safe out there. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right, Butch, let's wrap this thing up. That was a good report on the nearshore side of things. Let's take it a little further east, though, and I want to hear about the cobia migration. We're talking with Angelo DiPaola again today. Angelo What's the cobia report over there, man? Are there any fish showing up?
Man, for a species that people's been down on here lately, there's some fish showing up, and I clicked through, caught 3 of them yesterday, did a little acoustic tagging thing on them. Johnny Dorland and the guys on the Cotton Patch, they weighed in a big one over in Destin. I think they had a 84.9 pound fish. There's several fish I've heard of being caught in the 80s. You go put your time in, you're probably going to get a shot or two.
What's water quality over there? Is it dingy, or is it clearing back up since we had those hard southeasterly winds over the weekend? It was really rough, but are things improving over there on the beach?
It's been dingy, but it's starting to clear up.
What about the bottom fishing situation? I know, there's not a lot open right now, but for the species that are open, are pretty good catches coming in?
Man, sitting there at Orange Beach Marina every day, I get to see nice group of charter boats coming in and out, and every one of those guys are coming in with limits of triggerfish, some beeliners, some king mackerel, spadefish, Spanish mackerel. These are just little 4 and 6 hour trips, so they're having it. I just thought the other day, I was like, man, that's a nice little trip. Definitely enough for dinner, probably a couple nights. So it looked like a good time.
I'll tell you what, everybody loves red snapper, but Hank Shaw was with us a couple of weeks ago, and he came with us last year, and he grilled whole some what we call white snapper, red porgy. He grilled those things whole, and just scaled them, left the skin on, and I'll tell you what, I'd put that up against red snapper any day of the week when it's prepared right. So as far as I'm concerned, any of those aggregate reef fish are just as good as red snapper.
Speaking of,
man,
what about that?
I could not agree more.
What about that ocean-going pinfish that Hank?
Hey,
that was pretty fine stuff, man.
Let me take a little side note here and tell you about Hank Shaw. This dude is the most well-known, wild game and fish cookbook author. If y'all haven't checked him out, definitely do it. honestfood.net. He's got a number of different cookbooks out. He's just a wealth of knowledge. But he takes stuff that we've just commonly overlooked and can make food that you would literally drool over. We caught a pinfish, Angelo, when we were sheepshead fishing with him, one of these bigger pinfish that you see, probably a 12-inch pinfish. And he grilled that thing whole, and I'm telling you, it was better than sheepshead. I thought it was the best fish we had. That and the bluefish. He bled those bluefish we caught. Yeah. Immediately popped the gills, threw them in water, let them bleed out real good. He wrapped those things up in like corn husks and made like tamales. Man, a good chef with fresh ingredients. It does not matter what the fish is. Just about all those fish are good.
He's changed my mind about a lot of fish. I can tell you that.
I could not agree more. We have so many overlooked species.
Yeah, for sure.
Just tastes good.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. I just had to interject that.
Oh, no. I'm driving, and now I'm like, my mouth is watering.
Well, Angelo, what about the blue water side of things? Sounds like there's fish to be caught just about everywhere. You seen any good catches on, out a little further out for tuna and billfish, that kind of thing?
Man, some good friends of mine literally just came back in this afternoon from an overnighter. They went to the hub. They said, Angelo, we don't mind. Just tell them exactly what we did and where we went and what we caught. I said, well, thank you. So good friends of mine on the hot rod, Rodney Fickle, they went out there and did some live baiting. Everything they caught was on live bait. Nothing on the chunk, nothing on the troll. They had, I'd say at least a half dozen, but probably a little bit more smaller tunas in that 20 to 30 pound range. Okay. They had one that probably went $1.20. They had another one that it ripped the gaff out the guy's hand, and they said it looked slightly bigger than the one they caught. 150 pound fish or so.
That's heartbreaking right there.
And, no billfish bites, but said it looked good. Obviously, there's bites out there. Water looked good. So, I don't know when the next time the wind's going to lay down, but if you're an offshore guy, that's probably not a bad place to start off at on your next trip.
Well, Angelo, it sounds like there's just something going on for just about anybody, and that brings us to our. I'll be interested to see what your tip is this week. You've covered near shore, you've covered offshore, you've covered blue water. Before we get to that tip, eXp Realty, that's your brokerage there in Orange Beach, Gulf Shores. You got any waterfront properties or boating properties new on the market right now?
Man, we just put one live, I think, on Monday. It's a great lot. It's right in this little community called Palm Harbor. If you know, it's a gated community, just kind of a little circle. You have a marina right there in front. You got deeded beach access right across the street. It's kind of right across the street from Turquoise Place. If you're familiar with Orange Beach, that condo stands out. $185,000 gets you a lot, a deeded boat slip with a 10,000-pound lift, and the guy has a nice 23 Contender 2012 model with a 300 Yamaha that he'd be willing to part with as well. You know, we ain't got it up on our Facebook page, but if you're interested, hit me up, 850-287-3440, or just hit me up through Facebook Messenger. You can go to Angelo Di Paola, Realtor, The Coastal Connection. You'll pull me up and just like my page and kind of see what we got going. We got listings and restaurant reviews and all kinds of stuff on that page.
Angelo, what are you thinking about for a tip this week?
You know, the past couple of weeks, I think we kind of talked about live baiting, whether it be for blue marlin or tunas or whatnot, or really, you know, maybe it's a bait and switch situation and you're trolling a dead bait on the outrigger. And I always think about, you know, it's probably one of the harder things to do if you're not really familiar with how that process works, is hooking a pelagic on a circle hook, whether it be a live bait or a dead bait trolled, and especially when it's an outrigger clip, because you can't have the clip, you know, there's a couple different ways to do it. So I'm going to go over actually both of them. So, you know, the more typical way is if you have a Black's clip, which isn't a roller troller, it's kind of just a clip that closes down on itself, and you can either rubber band your line into the clip, take a couple of wraps around your line, go back through the loop of the rubber band and rubber band it into your clip, or you can have a floss loop, or you can just twist your line up into a loop, you know, take 4 or 5 turns so you got a loop and lock it into the clip so it doesn't slip, and then have your reel back pretty much near free spool. And that way, have that clip just tight enough to where it's holding your bait when it's not coming unclipped. And that way, if you get a bite, it just comes unclipped. You go right into your reel on free spool, and you're ready to go. The other way to do it is, and this is what I've kind of started doing of lately, if you have a roller troller on your outrigger, tighten that thing on down pretty tight, 5 to 8, 9 pounds of pressure, pretty good bit of pressure, and don't run it all the way up to the top of your outrigger. You'll bend your outrigger. Run it up about halfway, and then when you get the bite, that outrigger clip is just an extension of your rod. So as you start coming tight, moving your drag forward to come tight on the fish, you just come in tight, and by the time before the outrigger clip pops, you're going to be hooked onto that fish. So then when you know you're good and tight on them, you just move your strike and it's going to pop out that outrigger, or you can roll the outrigger back down and unsnap it yourself. You know, everybody's outrigger is going to be a little different. Everybody's clips are going to be a little different. You can do that with a drag scale to kind of see how much tension you need. Or you can just kind of feel. You don't want to bend your outriggers, but you want it tight enough that you're going to be able to set that circle hook, you know, up in the corner of the fish's mouth before the clip comes undone. And that's actually a really easy way to do it. If you're going to do it that way on a live bait situation, you really kind of need to be sitting there with the reel while you're fishing, because you're just pretty much in free spool the whole time.
Angelo, I got a question for you about that specifically, and this is something, Butch, you can weigh in on this too. I've always kind of struggled with this with outriggers. Is let's say you get that bite, and depending on how far back you've got that bait, and depending on how fast you're going, there's a little bit of lag time as that belly gets out of that line, kind of comes tight to your rod tip.
Oh yeah.
Do you find that if you're there and you're with that rod and you see it pop out of that clip, do you go ahead and start to reel on it to help take that belly up a little bit faster, or do you just let it alone and let the fish hook itself?
Not if I'm with a circle hook. I'm just sitting there. I'm leaving the reel in free spool, the clicker on, and my hand just keeping the line from backlashing when we finally come to the rod tip. Unless we're fishing really heavy tackle, but if you're like on a trolling situation with like a ballyhoo, I'm going to pick the rod up, point it at the fish, and then start easing the drag up to about 4 or 5 pounds of pressure. 4 or 5 pounds. A lot of times, especially on a light wire circle hook, it's going to send it home. Obviously, if you're fishing a lot, a little bit more drag pressure. But on a circle hook, no. On a J hook, I just assume because I'm going trolling speed, that when it comes tight, I'm on strike already, and he's going to either be there or he's not.
My take on that is going to be, it all depends on what kind of fish is biting and the vessel that you're on. I mean, the escape is so dang tall, and those outriggers are so huge that the belly in that line, pretty much all the time, if I have a tuna bite on one of those outriggers, I'm reeling on it to come tight. That's a lot of line. It's a big belly out there at the end of that outrigger.
But I guess on the Lady Ann, you don't have to do the same thing.
You don't. Nope. Totally different situation.
That's a good point there, Butch.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
Angelo,
my 2 cents.
well, I mean, we don't really care what Butch thinks, or
Yeah, that's okay. Hey,
but we just
I'm a has-been. That's all right. I'm okay
we
with
want to make him feel included, Angelo. So we just
That's
like every once in a while ask.
No,
That's all.
he's got a good point there, though, with the reeling down on the fish, especially a tuna fish.
Yeah, for sure. Because that sucker's going to be, he's going to grab it and he's going to be rolling. So he's going to make it come tight. So I just want to get that. I want to minimize the shock on that line as much as possible. So I'm just trying to get it tight.
Well, Angelo, thanks for the report this week, buddy. We got the Floribama fishing rodeo coming up here in about a month and a half or so. I'm looking forward to that. We're going to be over, podcasting live from there or on location there. So we'll be looking forward to that. Appreciate the report as always. We'll check in with you again soon, bud.
All right, man. Appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a good one.
All right, Joe. It's another good Alabama saltwater fishing report, man. It's a lot of good information. Sounds like things are heating up on the offshore side, and things just got to kind of see how this full moon kind of shakes out and see how the inshore kind of does next week. Sounds a little sketchy right now, but I have to think that it'll even out eventually. What do you think?
I got to believe so. It's only going to get better from here on the inshore side of things.
For sure. Yeah. Water starts getting a little warmer, and the speckled trout are going to start spreading out and showing up in big numbers. What'd you learn this week, man?
I'll tell you, I learned a couple things. Number one, what an awesome coastline we've got to be able to have access to so many different fisheries. I mean, literally, you can't even hardly cover it all. And these shows are starting to run an hour or so long, and it's like we could talk more if we wanted to. I mean, we haven't even covered the freshwater side of things. So when the Alabama Freshwater Fishing Report launches, that'll be a whole other.
Is that an official teaser?
Well, I mean, maybe. It's how cool is it? I mean, Alabama is just a diverse state.
It is.
It's a really awesome state. You got a lot going on, and not just Alabama. It's really the northern Gulf Coast. The Panhandle of Florida is really no different than lower Alabama. But that was cool to me just to really hear the diversity in the show. But the other thing that I learned today is that depending on the fish, patience is a virtue. But at the same time, what I heard from Matthew Isbell is, hey, the fish are here. Be patient. This is peak rut for pompano. Be patient. But then you talk to Richard Rutland, and he's saying basically the opposite. Hey, it's slow. Get moving. Don't waste too much time in one spot. Get out there and find a pattern, change it up, think outside the box. So I think that was my big takeaway from today is when it's slow, you've got two choices. You can either go find the fish that are biting. So, like right now, I'm not thinking about speckled trout. I'm thinking about pompano. Guess what I'm going to be doing this weekend? Surf fishing. But if I'm dead set on the fish that's not biting so great, better stick and move, man. Better cover some territory and be ready to pivot. That's I think that's my lesson for the week. What about you?
I wonder if there's a common theme for this week's show last year. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that. Because did you know our 1-year anniversary was 2 weeks ago?
I did know, but I mean, is this? Yeah, so I mean, it'll be interesting to go back and listen to the episode. I mean, you can get that on Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report Libsyn, LIBSYN.com. And you can go back and look through our complete archives. Be interesting to see what was going on this time last year.
I agree. I'm going to have to go back and look on the way to the camp one weekend or something. Just listen to all those, the past couple, 3 or 4 weeks. I'd be curious to see. Because all this stuff, like you were just saying, Richard said run and gun. I'm like, gosh, this sounds familiar.
Well, the cool thing about it is, so we talked to Joey Landreneau at the boat show, and he's talked about how he's kept a log of the fishing that he's done, and that he notices that it's not so much about a particular week in the year or a particular 2 weeks in the year. It's about particular conditions. And when those conditions line up, he catches fish in the same general patterns. And so if you go back a year ago and you listen to the podcast from then, it'll be interesting to hear what was going on, but also what were the conditions in that
Was
week.
it a full moon? Were the tides crazy? Was it a bunch of rain?
Right.
I guess it's been a weird year too, though. So as far as rain and all that. But anyways.
Definitely going to be some patterns to pick up. Cool stuff. All right, folks. It's going to wrap it up this week. As always, thank you for listening, subscribing, rating, and reviewing. We definitely always enjoy the reviews we get on iTunes. We try to read a few before each show. We really appreciate all the kind words over there. It keeps us motivated, keeps us pumped up. And if you would like us to email you the podcast, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we will send you the new show each week. I'm Joe Baya, Butch Theory. We'll see you guys next week. Keep whacking them.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by
Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaalabama.org.
Also brought to you by Geico. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo DiPaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
And also, Great Days Outdoors, the South's finest hunting and fishing magazine. Pick up your copy wherever magazines are sold or check them out at greatdaysoutdoors.com. And also, Killer Doc. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at killerdoc.com. That's killerdoc.com.
This is Captain Richard Rutland, and this report is brought to you by Cold Blooded Fishing. You can find us at www.coldbloodedfishing.com.